Axel Morgan awoke to cold stone beneath his back and the taste of copper in his mouth. His vision swam into focus, a dank ceiling carved from black rock, illuminated by pale moonlight filtering through a narrow, barred window high above. As consciousness fully returned, he registered the bite of restraints around his wrists and ankles. Military training kicked in immediately. He tested each binding methodically, finding them secure but not circulation-cutting tight. The Black Moon prison. He was inside the infamous Doglike cartel compound. A soft growl from the shadows alerted him to another presence. Axel tensed, turning his head slowly toward the sound. Two reflective eyes caught the moonlight, feral, intelligent, and unmistakably alien. "You're awake, human," came a feminine voice, accent thick with harsh consonants and elongated vowels characteristic of the Lunar Eye clan. "Good. I was beginning to think they'd damaged your brain beyond repair." As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he made out a lithe figure crouched against the far wall. Blue-gray fur covered her body, with darker markings around eyes that glowed with bioluminescent intensity. Her face was distinctly canine in structure, a longer muzzle than human norm, pointed ears atop her head, but her expressions were unsettlingly intelligent. She wore what remained of a pilot's jumpsuit, torn in places to accommodate the anatomical differences of her species. Like him, restraints bound her limbs, though she seemed to have more mobility. "Lunari," Axel said, voice rough from disuse. "Didn't expect the Doglike to put us in the same cell. They usually enjoy watching species tear each other apart in the arena, not their holding pens." The alien female, a member of the canid species that had become humanity's most contentious galactic neighbor, bared teeth in what might have been a smile or a threat. "I'm Kira, navigator smuggler of the Lunar Eye clan. And you are?" "GSF operative Morgan, Axel Morgan." He managed to sit upright, leaning against the wall opposite her. "Though I suppose rank doesn't matter much here." Above them, a surveillance drone hummed past the window, its scanning beam sweeping the cell interior. Both prisoners instinctively shrank from the light. 3 weeks, Kira said after the drone passed. "That's how long I've been in this cesspit. The guards say we're on a moon at the edge of Doglike territory. No official jurisdiction. Perfect place for their fighting pits." Axel processed this information against what he knew of Galactic Security Force intelligence. The Doglike cartel had been expanding operations into contested space, capturing representatives from both human and Lunari territories to exploit in their gambling operations. What had begun as border skirmishes between human colonies and Lunari clans had evolved into a profitable enterprise for the cartel, one that conveniently stoked the fires of interspecies hostility. "How did they take you?" he asked, assessing her injuries. Despite her confident posture, he noted a limp when she shifted position. Kira's ears flattened against her skull. "Ambush during a navigation run. My ship carried clan star charts, ancestral knowledge. The Doglike want our navigation techniques. I destroyed the physical chip before capture. But..." She tapped her temple with a clawed finger. "The star paths remain here. They'll extract them eventually, with or without my cooperation." The implications weren't lost on Axel. Lunari navigational abilities were legendary. An evolutionary adaptation to their binary star system had given them almost supernatural talents in spatial reasoning. If the Doglike obtained those techniques, they could bypass security systems across settled space. "And you, human? What prize did they take you for?" Kira asked. Axel considered lying, but saw little point. "Infiltration mission gone wrong. GSF sent me to gather intelligence on Doglike involvement in the border conflicts. Seems we've both learned more than we bargained for." A tense silence fell between them. Decades of propaganda and limited contact had built walls of suspicion between their species. The recent border skirmishes had only deepened the divide. Kira moved suddenly, crossing the distance between them with alarming speed. Before Axel could react, she crouched before him, nostrils flaring as she inhaled his scent. "You reek of military chemicals," she growled. "Pheromone suppressants, combat stimulants. Your kind thinks technology can overcome biology." Axel remained still, knowing sudden movements might trigger predatory instincts. "And your kind relies too heavily on instinct when intellect should prevail." Her lips curled back, revealing impressive canines. "Is that what they teach you? That we're just animals with spaceships?" "What do they teach you about us?" he countered. "That humans are duplicitous. That you speak peace while preparing for war." Her face moved closer to his, eyes narrowing. "That you can never be trusted." Something in her posture shifted. The guards would be making rounds soon. Axel could hear the rhythmic thud of their boots in the corridor beyond. Perhaps she sensed it too, because tension suddenly coiled in her muscles. "They'll separate us when they come," she whispered, voice dropping to a barely audible level. "Put us in the fighting pits tomorrow. They always pair predator species with humans. Maximum entertainment." Axel understood immediately. Whatever their differences, they shared a common enemy. "We need leverage," he murmured. What happened next occurred with such speed that Axel's trained reflexes barely registered the movement. Kira lunged forward, jaws opening, and sank her teeth into his forearm. The pain was immediate and shocking, not a warning nip, but a genuine attack, breaking skin and drawing blood. Training and instinct took over. In one fluid motion, Axel twisted his body and did the one thing no human had likely ever done when attacked by a Lunari. He bit back. His teeth found the junction between her neck and shoulder, clamping down with enough force to assert dominance without causing serious injury. The taste of her fur and the alien warmth of her skin registered dimly as he maintained the hold. Kira froze completely. Every muscle in her body went rigid with shock. When Axel finally released her, pulling back to assess the situation, her expression was one of absolute astonishment. "You," she began, unable to complete the thought, one hand rising to touch the bite mark on her blue-furred shoulder. The sound of the cell door mechanism engaging cut off any further exchange. Both prisoners moved apart instinctively, but something fundamental had shifted between them. Axel noted the change in Kira's posture. The aggression had transformed into something more complex, a mixture of confusion and reluctant respect. Two Dravak guards entered, their scaled bodies armored and weapons drawn. They were reptilian, with vertical pupils in yellow eyes that surveyed the cell with cold efficiency. "Inspection time. Meet," the larger guard hissed, prodding Axel with an electroshock baton. "Stand against the wall." As Axel complied, he caught Kira's eye. Something unspoken passed between them, a plan forming without words. When the second guard approached her, Kira assumed a posture of submission that Axel recognized as entirely feigned. "So, this one's injured," the second guard called, noticing the fresh bite mark. Combat value decreased. The first guard turned, momentarily distracted. It was the opening Axel needed. In one fluid motion, he slipped the makeshift lockpick he'd palmed from his boot and released his restraints. Before the guard could turn back, Axel was on him, using the chain of his broken restraints as a garrote. The struggle was brief and silent. As the first guard slumped unconscious, Kira made her move, using her greater agility to wrap her legs around the second guard's neck, applying pressure until he too lost consciousness. Impressive, Axel acknowledged, already stripping the guard of weapons and access cards. You moved like a predator, Kira replied, freeing herself completely from her restraints. She paused, studying him with new intensity. No human has ever returned a dominance bite. It's not done. Axel checked the corridor before responding. Let's just say I'm improvising. We have maybe 10 minutes before they miss these two. The maintenance tunnels, Kira said, already moving toward the door. They run throughout the complex. I've memorized what I could see from prisoner transports. They moved silently into the corridor, Kira leading with her superior night vision, Axel covering their rear with a confiscated pulse pistol. The prison complex was carved into the moon's surface, a labyrinth of cells and fighting arenas designed to disorient and contain. 3 levels down is the hangar, Kira whispered as they located a maintenance hatch. They keep prisoner transport vessels there. Minimal security because of the automated defense systems, which will need codes to bypass, Axel added. Following her into the narrow service tunnel, Kira glanced back, a glint of feral amusement in her eyes. Or a Lunari navigator with specialized training in overriding Doglike systems. The maintenance tunnels were tight spaces filled with pipes and conduits, bathed in emergency lighting that cast everything in a blood-red glow. Twice they froze as patrol drones passed nearby, their sensors sweeping for unauthorized life forms. Each time, Kira's heightened senses gave them precious seconds of warning. "Why did you bite me?" Axel asked during one such pause, voice barely audible. Kira's ears twitched, listening for danger before she answered. "Among my clan, it would have established dominance, made you easier to control when the guards came." She hesitated. "Your response changed things." "How so?" "When a Lunari bites to establish hierarchy and the other returns the bite with equal force, it creates balance, neither dominant nor submissive. It's rare even among our kind." Her luminous eyes fixed on him. "Between species, it's unprecedented." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the complex, cutting their conversation short. Their absence had been discovered. "We need to move faster," Axel urged. They descended through the levels, encountering minimal resistance until they reached the hangar access corridor. There, 4 heavily armed guards blocked their path. "I count 4 pulse rifles, 2 sidearms," Axel whispered, assessing the situation from their concealed position. "Too many for a frontal assault." Kira's nose twitched, sampling the air. "The ventilation system. I smell fuel purge lines. They must connect to the hangar." Above them, a narrow ventilation shaft offered a possible route, with Axel boosting her up. Kira disappeared into the opening, reaching back to help him follow. The shaft was painfully tight for his larger human frame, but they managed to traverse 50 meters before emerging onto a maintenance walkway overlooking the hangar. Below them sat 3 vessels, a bulky prisoner transport and 2 sleeker patrol craft. Doglike technicians moved between them, performing routine maintenance. The patrol craft, Kira indicated with a nod. "Faster, better armed. That one's fueled and ready." Axel studied the hangar layout. "Security console at 3 o'clock. Can you override from there?" "Yes, but I'll need 3 minutes. Can you create a diversion?" A slow smile spread across Axel's face. "That's practically my job description." They separated, Kira slipping toward the security station while Axel moved to the opposite side of the walkway, drawing the pulse pistol. He took aim at a fuel line feeding the inactive transport ship and fired. The explosion was more spectacular than he'd anticipated. Flames erupted across the hangar floor, sending technicians scrambling for safety and triggering fire suppression systems. In the chaos, Axel descended to the hangar floor, moving from cover to cover toward their targeted vessel. Across the hangar, he caught glimpses of Kira's blue fur as she worked at the security console, her clawed fingers moving with incredible speed across the interface. Alarms screamed throughout the facility as armed response teams began pouring in through secondary entrances. Axel provided covering fire, keeping the Dravak forces pinned down as Kira completed her work. The hangar bay doors began to open, revealing the star-filled void beyond and the curved surface of the black moon below. "Now!" Kira shouted. Abandoning the console and sprinting toward the patrol craft, Axel laid down suppressing fire as they both reached the vessel. Kira's claws made short work of the access panel, and the entry ramp descended. Within seconds, they were inside. Kira taking the navigator's position, while Axel slid into the pilot's seat. "Can you fly this thing?" Kira asked. "Already activating navigation systems. It's not that different from GSF interceptors," Axel replied, familiarizing himself with the controls. "Hold on." The patrol craft hummed to life beneath his hands. Dravak weapons fire peppered the hull as Axel engaged thrusters, lifting the vessel off the hangar floor. With a sudden surge of power, they shot toward the open bay doors, scraping the upper frame as they emerged into open space. Freedom lasted approximately 30 seconds before proximity alarms blared. 6 pursuit craft launching, Kira reported, reading the tactical display. Heavily armed, the black moon fell away behind them as Axel pushed the engines to maximum, heading for the system's asteroid field. The patrol craft responded beautifully, more maneuverable than he'd expected. Behind them, Dravak fighters gave chase, weapon systems charging. "Can you handle the defensive systems?" Axel asked, executing a rolling dive to avoid the first volley of enemy fire. Kira's hands moved across the weapons console, quickly deciphering the Dravak configuration. "Targeting systems online. I've hunted in 3 dimensions since childhood. This isn't so different." As they entered the asteroid field, the true dance began. Axel weaved the craft between massive space rocks, using natural cover while Kira's uncanny spatial awareness allowed her to time perfect counterattacks. 2 pursuit craft disappeared in satisfying explosions as her shots found vulnerable engine components. "They're trying to herd us toward the field's center," Kira warned, detecting a pattern in the remaining pursuers' movements. "There must be something there." "Or they're trying to trap us in tighter quarters," Axel suggested, narrowly avoiding collision with a tumbling asteroid fragment. "Either way, we need to thin their numbers." For nearly 20 minutes, they engaged in a lethal game of cat and mouse through the asteroid field. Kira proved remarkably adept at the weapons systems, her natural Lunari talents for spatial navigation making her an incredible gunner. Axel, for his part, pushed the patrol craft to its limits, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible for most pilots. 3 more Dravak vessels fell to their combined efforts, but the final pursuer was piloted with exceptional skill. It matched their every move, gradually forcing them deeper into the asteroid field, where maneuverability became increasingly restricted. "We can't outrun or outfight that one," Axel admitted after a particularly close exchange of fire. "Different tactics needed." Kira studied the tactical display, ears forward in concentration. "There," she said suddenly, indicating a cluster of asteroids ahead. "That formation creates a narrow passage, if we time it right." Axel understood immediately. "We'll have one shot at this." They plunged toward the asteroid cluster, the pursuing craft closing the distance behind them. As they approached the narrow gap between two massive space rocks, Axel reduced power, allowing their pursuer to gain ground rapidly. "Ready?" he asked, hands tight on the controls. Kira nodded, clawed finger poised above the weapon's trigger. "Now!" In one fluid sequence, Axel cut the main engines, fired maneuvering thrusters to flip the craft 180 degrees, and re-engaged full power. They now faced their pursuer head-on, streaking backward through the narrow passage. Before the Dravak pilot could react, Kira unleashed a full weapons barrage. The enemy vessel exploded spectacularly, the force of the blast propelling their craft through the passage just as the surrounding asteroids shifted, closing the gap behind them. Silence fell in the cockpit as both realized they'd survived. The patrol craft drifted into open space beyond the asteroid field, no further pursuers on their sensors. Kira was the first to break the silence. A sound emerging from her throat that Axel eventually recognized as laughter, higher pitched than human, but unmistakable in its relief and triumph. "You're flying," she said, turning luminous eyes toward him. It was adequate. Axel raised an eyebrow. "And your targeting was passable. For a smuggler." The tension between them dissolved into something like camaraderie. Axel engaged the autopilot, setting course for neutral space while they assessed their situation. "We have approximately 18 hours of fuel," he noted, checking the ship's systems. "Enough to reach Vega Station if we push it." Kira nodded, but her attention had shifted to his injured forearm where her bite had broken the skin. Without warning, she moved from her seat, approaching him with clear purpose. "Your wound requires treatment," she said, producing a medkit from beneath the console. "Lunari saliva contains mild anticoagulants. It needs cleaning." Before Axel could protest, she had taken his arm and begun applying antiseptic with surprising gentleness. Her clawed fingers worked with delicate precision, cleaning the puncture wounds she'd created. "In my clan," she said without looking up, "tending the wounds of another is a gesture of respect." "Even wounds you inflicted yourself?" Axel asked, watching her work. A flicker of amusement crossed her canine features. "Especially those. It acknowledges the other's strength, that they survived your challenge." As she wrapped a bandage around his arm, Axel noticed the mark he'd left on her shoulder, a distinct imprint of human teeth that would likely scar. Following some instinct he didn't fully understand, he reached out, fingers lightly touching the spot. Kira went absolutely still under his touch, but didn't pull away. "Does it hurt?" he asked. "No," she replied, voice unusually soft. "It marks a significant moment. Among my people, such marks are important." Their eyes met. The gulf between their species suddenly both vast and insignificant. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of mutual respect earned through shared danger. Kira returned to the navigator's seat. Her posture changed, more relaxed, less guarded. "Your GSF?" she said after a moment. "They fight the Lunari clans because they believe we initiated the border attacks." "Yes?" Axel nodded. Intelligence indicated Lunar Eye clan vessels were responsible for the destruction of 3 outpost stations, hundreds of lives lost. Kira's ears flattened against her skull. "And my clan fights because humans destroyed 2 of our generation ships, over 1,000 cubs, elders, and caregivers killed." Her claws extended unconsciously, then retracted. Yet neither side conducted thorough investigations before retaliating. The implications hung between them. Axel had harbored doubts about the conflict's origins even before his capture, which was partly why he'd volunteered for the intelligence mission. "You think someone else is responsible?" he said. It wasn't a question. The Dravak profit from conflict, Kira replied, but they lack the sophistication for such manipulation. They are tools, not architects. The Vex Collective, Axel suggested, naming the shadowy organization rumored to operate throughout settled space. They've been expanding influence in both human and Lunari territories. Kira's eyes widened slightly. My clan elders suspect the same. The Vex seek control of key transit routes that both our peoples claim. For hours, they exchanged information, piecing together a disturbing picture. The border conflicts that had brought their species to the brink of war appeared increasingly manufactured. False flag operations designed to pit natural allies against each other while a third party gained advantage. As the patrol craft sped toward neutral space, their conversation shifted from strategy to more personal matters. The forced proximity of the small vessel created an unexpected intimacy. "Your species lives how long?" Kira asked, watching stars streak past the viewport. "Average human lifespan is about 120 years with current medical technology." Axel replied, "Yours?" "Lunari typically live 170 cycles, similar to your years." Her head tilted curiously. "Yet you accomplish so much in your shorter lives. Your species builds and expands constantly, never pausing. And yours maintains traditions spanning millennia." Axel observed, "There's value in both approaches." Silence fell between them again, but comfortable now. Axel found himself studying her alien features with new appreciation, the way her fur shifted colors slightly with changing light, the expressive movements of her ears, the intelligence in her luminous eyes. "What happens when we reach Vega Station?" Kira finally asked. It was the question Axel had been considering since their escape. Protocol demanded he return to GSF headquarters immediately with intelligence about the Dravak operation and suspected Vex involvement. Kira would likely do the same with her clan. "We have evidence of third-party manipulation in the border conflicts," he said slowly, "but nothing concrete enough to halt hostilities already in motion." Kira nodded, understanding the dilemma. "My clan possesses part of a Vex communication cipher recovered from a compromised operative. Incomplete, but valuable. GSF intelligence has fragments of Vex financial transactions linking them to weapons supplied to supposed Lunari raiders," Axel countered. "Also incomplete." Their eyes met across the cockpit, the same realization dawning on both. "Together," Kira began. "Oh, we might have enough to expose the entire operation." Axel finished. The implication was clear. Neither could return directly to their people. To do so would squander their unique opportunity. They needed to work together. Outside official channels, compromised by Vex infiltration. "My navigation chip," Kira said, suddenly. "The one I destroyed before capture. It wasn't just star charts. It contained encrypted data on Vex movements through Lunari space. A backup exists at a cache on Proxima Station. That's near the diplomatic summit scheduled for next month." Axel noted, "Both human and Lunari representatives will be present, if we could present irrefutable evidence there." The plan began taking shape between them. They would divert to Proxima Station, retrieve Kira's hidden data, combine it with Axel's intelligence, and present a united front at the summit, potentially averting an interspecies war. As the ship's systems indicated the halfway point of their journey, exhaustion finally caught up with them. The patrol craft's limited accommodations offered only a small rest area with a single sleeping platform. "You should rest first," Axel offered. "I'll monitor our course." Kira hesitated, then shook her head. "Lunari sleep differently than humans. We require less continuous rest, but more frequent cycles." She gestured to the platform. "We can share, among pack members, It's normal. The casual inclusion of him in her concept of pack wasn't lost on Axel. It represented a significant shift in her perception. They arranged themselves on the narrow platform, initially maintaining careful distance. But as sleep overtook them, their bodies naturally sought warmth in the cool spacecraft environment. Axel woke briefly to find Kira's fur-covered form pressed against his side, her breathing deep and even. The alienness of the situation struck him, yet it felt strangely right, as though some ancient barrier between their species had dissolved. When they finally approached Vega Station 12 hours later, both were rested and focused on their evolving plan. Using the Dravac vessel's clearance codes, they secured docking permission at a maintenance bay, avoiding main security checkpoints. "We'll need different transportation from here," Axel said as they prepared to disembark. "This ship will be flagged once the Dravac report it's stolen." Kira adjusted the civilian clothing they'd found aboard, attempting to make it fit her non-human proportions. "I have contacts here, smugglers who've worked both sides of the border. They owe me favors." Vega Station hummed with the activity of a major trading hub. Its corridors teemed with diverse species, making it easier for them to blend in despite Kira's distinctive appearance. The station represented neutral territory where the ongoing conflicts remained distant concerns for most inhabitants. Kira led them through increasingly narrow maintenance corridors until they reached a section dominated by small-time trading operations and questionable enterprises. "Wait here," she instructed, approaching a shopfront displaying mismatched spacecraft components. Axel observed her interaction with the proprietor, a multi-limbed being whose species he couldn't immediately identify. Their conversation appeared tense initially, then relaxed as credits exchanged hands. When Kira returned, satisfaction gleamed in her eyes. "We have passage to Proxima Station aboard a cargo hauler leaving in 6 hours," she announced. "No questions asked. The captain is neither human nor Lunari aligned." "Good work," Axel acknowledged. "We should avoid public areas until departure. Both our faces are likely on watch lists by now." They found temporary sanctuary in a storage compartment near their departure bay, using the time to further develop their plan. The diplomatic summit on Proxima Station would gather high-level representatives from both sides, creating an opportunity to present their evidence of manipulation, if they could gather enough proof to be convincing. "Tell me about your clan," Axel said during their wait, genuinely curious. Beyond what appears in GSF intelligence briefings, Kira's expression softened. "The Lunar Eye clan traces its lineage to the first spacefaring Lunari. We were navigators before we had vessels, charting paths through wilderness by starlight." Pride colored her voice. "Our clan ships house thousands, representing dozens of pack families. We travel together, trade together, defend together." "Your family?" Axel asked. A shadow crossed her features. "Lost in the generation ship destruction, my parent mates, 2 siblings." She met his eyes directly. "That is why this mission must succeed. Too many have already died for someone else's ambition." Axel shared his own story, his upbringing on a frontier colony, his recruitment into GSF following a Dravac raid on his settlement, his gradual disillusionment with certain military actions as he rose through intelligence ranks. With each exchange, the distance between them diminished further. By the time they boarded the cargo hauler, a massive, ungainly vessel transporting agricultural equipment to Proxima, they moved together with the synchronized awareness of longtime companions. The journey to Proxima Station took 3 days. They spent the time in a small passenger compartment, refining their plan and recovering from their ordeal. The ship's captain, true to agreement, asked no questions about the unusual pairing of human and Lunari traveling together. Proxima Station loomed large in the viewport as they approached, a sprawling construct of interconnected modules orbiting a tidally locked planet. Unlike the utilitarian Vega station, Proxima was designed to impress, serving as a showcase of cooperation between settled species. Its central diplomatic hub featured architecture incorporating elements from all major spacefaring civilizations. The summit begins tomorrow, Axel noted as they prepared to disembark. Security will be heightened throughout the station. Kira nodded. The navigation cache is in the commercial sector. We should retrieve it first, then find a secure location to analyze the combined data. They entered the station using identification documents provided by their transport captain, temporary worker credentials that would grant them access to most public areas. The commercial sector bustled with activity as various delegations arrived for the summit, creating useful cover for their movements. Kira led them to an unassuming financial services office. The cash is in a secure deposit box, she explained. Registered under a trading identity my clan maintains. Retrieving the navigation chip proved surprisingly straightforward. Within an hour, they had secured a private data analysis suite in one of the station's information centers, using Axel's GSF encryption protocols to create a secure workspace. Now we see if our theory holds, Axel said as they combined their intelligence. The navigation chip contained more than either had anticipated, not just star charts and Vex movement data, but recorded communications between Vex operatives discussing the profitable friction between humans and Lunari. Axel's financial intelligence completed the picture, showing resource transfer patterns that perfectly aligned with escalations in border conflicts. This is it, Kira breathed, ears forward with intensity as they reviewed the compiled evidence. Proof that the Vex engineered attacks on both sides, using Dravak assets to execute false flag operations. Axel nodded grimly. And confirmation that they've infiltrated both human and Lunari communication systems. They've been intercepting diplomatic messages, altering content to inflame tensions. The scale of the manipulation was staggering. For nearly 3 years, the Vex Collective had been systematically driving both species toward war, positioning themselves to control crucial territories once the major powers had weakened each other through conflict. The summit convenes in the Grand Assembly Chamber tomorrow at midday, Axel said, checking station announcements. We need a way to present this evidence that can't be dismissed or suppressed. Kira's ears flicked thoughtfully. I may know someone who can help. Dr. Eleanor Reed, a xenobiologist who's worked with my clan. She has summit credentials and understands both species' communication styles. Can she be trusted? Axel asked. She lost her mate in one of the border incidents. She wants answers as much as anyone. They arranged a meeting with Dr. Reed in a quiet corner of the station's arboretum, a neutral location where their unusual pairing would attract less attention. Eleanor Reed proved to be a slender, silver-haired human woman with keen eyes that missed nothing about the unusual alliance before her. When you contacted me, I hardly believed it, she said after introductions. A GSF operative and a Lunar Eye navigator working together. Unprecedented. Necessary, Kira corrected. We've discovered something that changes everything about the border conflicts. They shared their evidence, watching understanding dawn in the scientist's expression. I've suspected external manipulation, Dr. Reed admitted. The pattern of attacks never made logical sense for either side. But this... She gestured at their data. This is beyond what I imagined. We need to present this at the summit. Axel explained. In a way that can't be intercepted or prevented by Vex agents likely embedded in both delegations. Dr. Reed considered the problem. I'm scheduled to present research findings on comparative biology. My presentation includes a direct data feed to the Chamber's main visualization system. A determined expression settled on her features. I can modify my presentation to include your evidence. The plan came together quickly. Dr. Reed would begin her scheduled presentation normally, then transition to revealing the Vex manipulation evidence at a predetermined signal. Axel and Kira would be positioned in the audience chamber, ready to address questions and provide personal testimony about their discoveries. As the summit's opening day dawned, tension filled Proxima Station. Human and Lunari delegations maintained rigid separation in public spaces, the atmosphere heavy with mutual suspicion. News feeds reported continuing skirmishes along border territories, with pressure mounting on both governments to take more decisive military action. Axel and Kira entered the Grand Assembly separately, using credentials Dr. Reed had arranged. The chamber was architecturally impressive, a soaring space with tiered seating arranged in a perfect circle, representing equality among participating species. At the center stood a holographic display platform where presenters could share visual data with the entire assembly. Human representatives occupied one quadrant of the chamber, Lunari another, with various neutral species and observers filling the remaining spaces. Security personnel from all participating groups maintained watchful presence throughout. Dr. Reed began her presentation precisely on schedule, discussing evolutionary parallels between humans and Lunari, seemingly academic material that nonetheless held the audience's attention due to its relevance to current tensions. 15 minutes into her talk, she gave the agreed-upon signal, a casual adjustment of her collar. Axel tensed, ready for their moment. Before continuing with physiological comparisons, Dr. Reed said smoothly, "I've been asked to share some pertinent data regarding the origins of our current diplomatic challenges." The holographic display shifted, suddenly showing the first pieces of evidence Axel and Kira had compiled, intercepted communications explicitly discussing Vex-orchestrated attacks designed to appear as Lunari aggression. A murmur ran through the assembly as Dr. Reed continued, methodically presenting evidence of manipulation targeting both sides. When she displayed financial records linking Vex operatives to the destruction of the Lunari generation ships, a growl of outrage rose from the Lunari delegation. "This presentation is unauthorized," announced a human security officer, moving toward the central platform. "Dr. Reed, you will cease immediately." "I will not," the scientist replied firmly. "This evidence has been verified using both human and Lunari authentication protocols. It proves that we have been manipulated into conflict by the Vex Collective for their territorial gain." Chaos erupted in the chamber as delegates demanded explanations. Axel caught Kira's eye across the room. This was their cue. They converged on the central platform from opposite directions, joining Dr. Reed before the assembled representatives. The unexpected sight of human and Lunari standing united created a momentary hush. "My name is Axel Morgan, Galactic Security Force Intelligence Division," Axel announced, his voice carrying through the chamber. "The evidence you're seeing was recovered during a joint escape from Dravak captivity, where both human and Lunari prisoners were being exploited. I am Kira of the Lunar Eye clan." Kira continued, her powerful voice commanding attention. "Our peoples have been deceived. The attacks attributed to each side were conducted by Vex operatives using Dravak assets. They seek to weaken us both through prolonged conflict." As if to punctuate their warning, an explosion suddenly rocked the station. Emergency alarms blared as the chamber's security protocols engaged, sealing all exits. "Security breach in Docking Bay 7, announced the station's automated system. "Unauthorized vessel has breached containment, initiating emergency procedures." Commander Hayes of the human delegation rose to his feet. "This is a coordinated attack," he declared. "All security personnel, implement containment protocols." Displays throughout the chamber showed feeds from various station sections, masked figures moving with military precision through corridors, clearly heading toward the diplomatic sector. Vex operatives, Axel identified immediately. They're trying to prevent exposure of their operation. What followed tested the fragile alliance forming in the chamber. As station security engaged the intruders, human and Lunari representatives found themselves making a choice: continue their mistrust or cooperate against a common threat. The deciding moment came when a group of attackers breached the chamber's outer security. As they prepared to enter, human security forces found themselves fighting alongside Lunari clan guards, coordinating their efforts without hesitation. Axel and Kira joined the defense, their combat partnership forged in their escape, now deployed to protect the very leaders who had been poised for war. Their seamless coordination, Axel's tactical precision complementing Kira's speed and strength, provided a visible example of what cooperation could achieve. The attack was repelled within hours, with several Vex operatives captured alive, providing further confirmation of the conspiracy. As the station returned to security status normal, the diplomatic summit reconvened with dramatically altered dynamics. "We have been presented with incontrovertible evidence of third-party manipulation," announced the human delegation leader, addressing the full assembly. In light of this information, the United Earth government proposes an immediate cessation of hostilities along all border territories. The Lunari Grand Elder, a silver-furred figure of imposing presence, stepped forward in response. The clan council concurs. Furthermore, we propose the formation of a joint investigation commission to identify all Vex assets within our respective territories. As the diplomats began the work of building new cooperation, Axel and Kira found themselves celebrated as unlikely heroes, living proof that their species could work together effectively despite profound differences. "What happens now?" Kira asked as they watched human and Lunari representatives engaged in earnest conversation across the chamber. Axel considered the question. "Officially, we'll both be debriefed extensively. I'll probably face some disciplinary action for operating outside command structure." "As will I," Kira acknowledged. "Yet I find I cannot regret our actions." Their eyes met, the connection between them now undeniable. In the artificial gravity of the station, they stood side by side, shoulders nearly touching, different species united by shared purpose and growing personal bond. "There's talk of establishing a joint colony," Axel said after a moment. "A place where both species can develop cultural exchange beyond diplomacy. They'll need people experienced in cross-species cooperation." Kira's ears perked forward with interest. "People like us?" "Exactly like us," Axel confirmed, a smile tugging at his lips. "If you're interested." Her hand, furred, clawed, utterly alien yet now familiar, found his. "I believe I am, though human customs for such partnerships remain mysterious to me. We'll figure it out," Axel assured her. "We've managed everything else so far." 6 months later, on a temperate world designated New Harmony, the first joint human-Lunari colony took shape under twin moons. At its administrative center, 2 unlikely leaders guided the ambitious project, a former GSF operative and a Lunar Eye clan navigator. The colonial settlement blended architectural styles and cultural practices from both species, creating something entirely new. Children from both species played together in common areas, learning each other's languages and customs from the earliest age. In their private quarters one evening, Axel and Kira reviewed progress reports on the colony's development. Their living space reflected their unique partnership, accommodating both human and Lunari ergonomic needs, decorated with artifacts from both cultures. The agricultural exchange program is exceeding expectations, Axel noted, studying projection figures. Lunari soil enrichment techniques have increased crop yields by 30%, and human medical protocols have reduced cubhood illness significantly, Kira added, her voice warm with satisfaction. The elders are particularly impressed. They had grown comfortable in each other's presence, developing routines that bridged their biological and cultural differences. What had begun as pragmatic cooperation had evolved into something deeper, a connection neither had anticipated, but both now cherished. Kira set aside her data tablet, moving to where Axel sat. In the months since their escape, her bite mark on his forearm had healed into a neat scar. Similarly, his bite on her shoulder had left a permanent mark in her fur, a patch of white amid blue that she displayed proudly according to Lunari custom. The diplomatic delegation arrives tomorrow, she reminded him, settling beside him. They will expect a demonstration of successful integration. I think we can provide that, Axel replied, his hand naturally finding the mark on her shoulder, a gesture that had become intimate ritual between them. Their relationship had developed its own unique customs and boundaries, navigating the physiological and cultural differences with patience and creativity. They had discovered unexpected compatibilities alongside obvious contrasts, building something neither culture had vocabulary to fully describe. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't bitten me back? Kira asked, her luminous eyes studying his face. Axel considered the moment that had changed everything, that instinctive response that had broken all protocol and precedent. I think we would have found another way, he said finally. Some connections are inevitable. Kira made the soft rumbling sound he'd come to recognize as contentment. A very human perspective. My people would say it was written in the stars, navigational destiny. Outside their window, the settlement's lights glowed beneath alien constellations. Human and Lunari voices mingled in the community spaces, creating a harmony of sounds that would have seemed impossible mere months earlier. Perhaps we're both right, Axel suggested, drawing her closer. Perhaps, Kira agreed, her head finding its familiar place against his shoulder. It seems we frequently are. Together they stood at the window, watching their unlikely achievement take shape below, a new beginning born from a bite exchanged in darkness, proof that understanding could emerge from the most unexpected of circumstances.